Hello everyone, and welcome to our second webinar in the series, The Future is Female. Today we're talking to a group of women who are bringing much needed innovation to the diamond industry. Our panel features an entrepreneur, a designer, a diamond expert, and a sustainability expert, but the thing they all have in common is their desire to elevate other women. Thanks to the Natural Diamond Council for bringing us all together to share our collective wisdom. My name is Melanie Grant, and I'm the luxury editor of 1843 magazine at The Economist, and I will be your host for today. Allow me to introduce you to the panel. First up, we have Jo Mathole. Give us a wave, Jo. Great. Jo is founder and owner of Kwame Diamonds, and Jo comes from Soweto in South Africa. She was a stockbroker before entering the world of diamonds, where she owns a cutting and polishing company, as well as a business focusing on ocean mining called Azania Marine. Next, we have Katie Fergusson. Give us a wave, Katie. Fantastic. Katie is the Senior Vice President of Sustainable Impact at De Beers Group and a member of their brand leadership team, where she focuses on social impact, biodiversity, equity and inclusion programs. Before De Beers, she worked at Anglo American and KPMG. She is based in London. Following Katie, we have Roxanne Rajcoomar-Hadden. Give us a wave, Roxanne. Fantastic. Roxanne is a celebrated jewelry designer and a founder of RRH Jewelry, which she began in 2013. Her materials are all ethically sourced, and she started her career as a diamond grader for the likes of Theo Fennell. She is based in London. And last but definitely not least, we have Madeleine Fraser. Give us a wave, Madeline. Fantastic. Madeline is an entrepreneur and founder of Gemist, a digital platform that allows consumers to design their own jewelry and try it on before they buy. She is a serial entrepreneur in the digital luxury space with 2 other companies under her belt and is based in LA. So we're going to dive straight in, people. We've got a lot to cover. So it's wonderful to see everyone here on International Women's Day. I think it's important that we hear about the thoughts and experiences of women who are making pioneering moves within jewelry. According to the consultancy firm Bain & Company, COVID is accelerating structural change within the industry, and that is good news for women. But what challenges remain, and how can we work together to overcome them? So first, I'm going to go to Jo. So Jo, you were a stockbroker for 16 years before changing careers in 2008. What were the biggest hurdles, both culturally and economically, as a woman in the diamond business in South Africa?
So, Melanie, thank you so much, firstly, for inviting me to be part of this panel. And really, it is a privilege. And I want to thank you again for allowing us as Kwame Diamonds to share our journey through this cutthroat diamond business. So yeah, jumping straight into it, the hurdles culturally and economically that I had to face as an entrepreneur in this industry, you know, on the backdrop of SA's history, as you would all appreciate. I was now a Black woman in this male, white-dominated industry that has never been transformed, whether it be gender-wise or racially. You know, so it was a very difficult environment to start a business. I did not even have the requisite experience, the expertise, and that already just made me a misfit, you know, because then it meant I needed to work twice as hard, you know. I did not have any existing networks. I'm a first generation diamante in my family. They've never heard of it. Normally we've got teachers, lawyers, doctors, and there you are, a Black woman, you're becoming a diamond dealer. So all we've known about diamond dealers is, you know, what you see on TV. It's normally criminal, it's heist, it's mafia, it's all these things. So you can imagine my mother was like, okay, you're going to leave a well-paying job to become this thing that we don't know. But I was quite strong-willed and believed that that was the path I wanted to follow. Now, the challenging thing as well was that when we started the business, we needed to have enough capital. Now, we don't come from a rich family. We don't have no trust funds. We don't have no inheritance from our grandfather. Our father didn't do justice to us as well. So between my sister and myself, We had to put together our pension funds, our provident funds to start the business, to fund the business. And that was, you can imagine, it's not really easy, especially if you're a novice in the industry, you know. And we had another hurdle that we needed to tackle, which was access to markets, you know. You can imagine that this industry is trust-based. So you coming in, you are new, and there's well-established supply chains and supply relationships in place, you know. So nobody in the market was actually willing to give us a chance, or rather try out these diamond people. They are black. Who are they? Who is vouching for them? You understand? And we did not have that fallback on to say, okay, you can talk to Melody, you know, she knows us and we are good for it, you know. So it was some such hurdles, but it was an interesting journey because through aligning ourselves as a company, and or rather as an individual as well, I learned that the strength in network. So it went without saying that I needed to align myself with the right people to be able to open the doors, because as I say, it's a trust industry. It's mostly family orientated businesses. It's not listed companies where, you know, you can have a say, but you need to be good with the industry. You earn your stripes, and then only then do people start opening up, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, Melanie, to say the least.
But you've made it really work, because when we spoke earlier, you're about to launch your own 67-facet diamond cut called the Ocean Flower, which you mined, designed, and created yourself, which is a phenomenal achievement, you know, going from 2008, you know, that wasn't that, you know, far
Absolutely.
back.
Yeah.
How important is innovation and risk-taking, do you think, for women trying to break into such a male-dominated industry?
You know, Melanie, to be honest, the word that springs to mind immediately is disruption. You know, I believe as a business, you need to be able to reinvent yourself. You know, you need to be able to go against the tide. You need to go against the grain towards being different, to setting yourself apart. You know, as you know, 80% of diamonds are consumed by women, and yet we really participate at the lower angles or very minimal in the entire value chain. So as a company, we decided to really be torchbearers in being the change that we really want to see, you know, and make sure that we change the narrative that, you know, diamonds are diamonds are girls' best friend, to women know diamonds best, you know, because we wear the diamonds, we love the diamonds, we are the diamonds naturally. You know, so who best, you know, to market the diamonds, who best to run a diamond business than a group of, or rather, women-owned businesses. So I'm quite passionate about that. And then, so we took a very conscious decision to use beneficiation as a tool, you know, to say we've got the natural resources. So why don't we use our natural resources to create opportunities? So we put together this company that bought rough diamonds and cut and polish, and then we did skills transfer to the youth in Soweto, where we grew up, you know, because we know our roots and we know what our people are going through. So we quite passionate about upskilling ladies, especially, or rather young women that are stuck in the townships with nothing, with no hope, you know. So the company really managed to create those opportunities through skills transfer, and we created jobs for them. So the 67 facet really was a breakthrough for us and our partners, because we managed to, it's too beautiful for words. Like you ladies are beautiful, but I'm sorry that the diamond just takes the light, you know. It's something fresh. It's something that people can talk about. It's so exciting. It's just refreshing. You know, women, when I'm wearing my necklace, I want to talk about it. I want to say something because I feel it is different. And this particular piece really offers that, because it is highlighting the actual the history behind the legacy of Nelson Mandela. it is too amazing for words, you know. So through that, we were able to create quite a few opportunities for women, because we strongly believe that you empower a woman, you empower a nation, you know. And then so we decided to go with that. And then at this point in time, we're quite excited because we're launching this, and hopefully it will impact lives as it's intended to be.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jo. I'm going to move on to Katie. So Katie, you lived and worked in Peru when you were much younger, when you were and we were discussing challenging experiences in our careers earlier. And you mentioned an initial experience with an all-male leadership team. Can you tell us what that taught you, and any advice you can give to younger women listening to this or dealing with similar issues would be most appreciated.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Melanie. And first, I just want to say what a privilege that is, listening to Jo talking about her journey and her experience. It's so inspiring. Yeah, so as you say, Melanie, we were talking about those moments in your career which at the time are really tough and actually quite horrendous, but you look back on them and they've been those really defining moments that, you know, I think, you know, probably took you to where you get to. And the example that I was telling you about was, I was in my early 30s, and an opportunity came up to go and work in Peru. And I was the only woman on an all-male leadership team. I was 10 to 15 years younger than everybody else on the team. I was working in a second language. The team was it was a very high pressure situation. The team were you know, dealing with a number of complex challenges, and you know, they made it very clear to me from the beginning, some of them more actively and some more passively, but I was certainly, you know, they certainly made it clear that, you know, even without sort of knowing me or you know, they're being given a chance, that they didn't think I was going to be able to do the job. And I think, you know, that is stressful, and it's very isolating to be in that situation. And I'm sure it resonates with, you know, many of the people listening on the call. People will have had experiences, you know, like that through their career. And I think, you know, what you need to do in those situations, and the advice that I would give looking back now, is, you know, you need to dig deep. You need to get really stubborn, that, you know, nobody else is going to judge whether or not you can do it. You know, you're the only person that you're going to let do that. And, you know, I look back now, and we ended up staying in Peru 4.5 years. It was an incredible experience, both personally and professionally. And I learned so much. Those are the kind of opportunities you need to grab, because they accelerate your learning, they accelerate your development. And I think look for support, look for a network to support you. Take each day at a time, so it's not overwhelming, but certainly don't give up, because, you know, if you drop out, then you don't, and if you know, you don't know what you could have done. But if you keep going, then, you know, that'll give you the courage, you know, in other similar challenges. So I think, you know, all in all, it's really important to take those experiences and run with them, I think.
I think that's great advice, because I've definitely had a similar job, you know, and at the time it feels like the end of the world, but it actually propels you to the next level. So if anyone's out there having that experience, don't give up. My next question is, when we were talking, and I'm sure most of our audience will agree, that mentoring is extremely important to progress in your career. But you mentioned sponsorship, which I personally wasn't that, you know, I wasn't aware of the difference. And I wonder if you can explain to us the difference between the two, and how that might work within De Beers or the diamond industry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's something that I wasn't aware of, the difference, or what a big impact it has on careers, especially getting into leadership positions, until we you know, we really started to look very actively at inclusion and diversity at De Beers a few years ago. And mentorship, I think, you know, we would all know, it can either be a traditional or reciprocal mentoring arrangement, and can either be with somebody internal to your organization or external, but that's really about giving advice and guidance and helping somebody to understand their strengths. Sponsorship is about somebody more senior than you in the organization, who is using their own network and credibility to really advocate for you. So in talent development conversations, you know, when opportunities for those great projects are coming up, in promotion discussions, they're being really deliberate and proactive about making sure that you are visible in those. And the gendered component of that is that, you know, the research will show that women and men both tend to have mentors, but it tends to be men who have sponsors. And that tends to be the difference between getting to leadership positions. And that's all linked to unconscious bias, and that, you know, as humans, we unconsciously tend to favor and support people who have similar skills and behaviors to us, because that's what we value. So if you have predominantly male leadership within an organization or an industry, then that will be perpetuated by that sponsorship. So really important thing for leaders to be aware of. And I think particularly through COVID and the fact that we're all working more remotely, we'll continue to work, you know, remotely, probably more than we did in the past, which probably means that more junior members of the team, you know, are not as visible to senior leadership as they would be around the office. So really important to be aware of that, and just be deliberate about making sure that team members' work is visible and getting the recognition that they deserve.
Great, thank you, Katie. I'm going to move on to Roxanne. Roxanne, I'm going to ask you quite a tough question here. If you could do one thing to change the world, what would it be?
Hi everybody. Thanks so much for inviting me on here. Yes, Melanie, very difficult question. I don't think there's one particular thing, but I remember seeing an advert in 2016 for one of those DNA testers. I don't know if everybody remembers, but they basically had a group of people who thought they were from a certain place. One of them says, you know, in fact, all of them were pretty much, they were purists, and they spoke about them being from that place and only that place and how much they love that place. Then they did the DNA test, and it so happens that they were from multiple places. And in fact, from the advert, I remember there were actually cousins in the audience that obviously they had never met each other. They were from different countries. They had no idea. And I think something like that, obviously we wouldn't be able to do that, but it just makes us slightly more mindful and empathetic of other people in different circumstances. I mean, lots of us are fortunate enough to be living in, you know, it's pot luck, isn't it, where you're born? You don't have that choice. So I think it would just, you know, create a little bit more equality in the world if we all knew, maybe we don't have to know where we're from, but we had the idea that we were all mixed and we all, you know, we're all one.
Great, I love that answer. And so going to your work, you have a new ethically sourced collection called the Milestone Collection. And I wonder if you can tell us how that's connected to female empowerment.
Well, the Milestone Collection is based on, I was sort of inspired by marking my own personal milestones in my life. So every time something exciting would happen, I think the first time I went on my first diamond buying trip, I bought a small diamond to set in a ring, and it sort of just kept happening over years. Any milestone or anything momentous, I would mark that occasion with a diamond. And it sort of, the collection grew from there, and I would, you know, sell this piece to other clients and they would mark their milestones using, you know, exactly the same concept. So I've sort of built the collection around that idea. But this time I wanted, you know, to be really different to any other collection that I've done. So therefore I had to make it as sustainable and ethically sourced as possible, which is incredibly difficult in this world at the moment. I mean, we're moving in the right direction, but it is still very difficult. But I think the other part of my mind really wanted to focus on self-purchasing and women buying for ourselves and marking those momentous occasions ourselves. I obviously love receiving gifts, but I also really get great pleasure out of gifting myself. And to tie into that, I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was sort of sourcing the core ingredients of their collection, should I say, from sustainable and ethical sources. And I hoped that I would find women mining and at the heart of it, and I did, which is excellent. So I'm working with a few artisan miners who are doing great work, sort of supporting communities in Mozambique and Tanzania, and they are getting women together who are mining themselves, and they are becoming the main breadwinners of their community. And it's actually so incredible to see what women can do with these resources. Given, you know, if they're given the money, essentially, it seems to go a lot further, and they think about building their communities, and they think about the next generation, and therefore they're inspiring more people around them. And it's quite an incredible story what they're doing. So I really wanted to be part of that journey. And it's nice knowing that when you're gifting yourself something, or even if you're buying a present, that it's come from a good place and it's making a difference to communities that would not normally have those types of opportunities.
I think that's a really good point, because so much of the economic power that we need to find and sort of practice comes from other women helping us. So this is why we're here today. So that takes me to Madeline, who actually leads me quite nicely into a question. So many owners of startups struggle to get investment, the kind of investment we're just sort of talking about. You recently took investment from De Beers. Can you tell us about that experience and what you had to overcome to get into that position?
Yes, I can. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here among such incredible women. And I wouldn't be doing anything I'm doing without the women in my life who have supported me up until now. I'll tell you that much. You know, I've started 3 companies. I've raised a lot of money in venture capital, and it never gets easier. You learn a little bit more, you get a thicker skin, but it's always really a new path, a new challenge, and a new hurdle to overcome. And, you know, when I was faced with the opportunity to get an investment from De Beers Diamonds, oh my God, I was freaking out. And of course, naturally very nervous to execute this and to, you know, really push it over the finish line, you know, because these things can get drawn out. So you have to have courage and perseverance, and you just have to bulldoze right ahead and keep taking one foot, you know, one step in front of the other. And that's what I'm good at. That's what I always tell myself to do. And so I actually had the opportunity to fly to London and to pitch them in person. And this was, of course, before the pandemic. So I was lucky that that happened. But there's such magic in being able to be in front of somebody and to be able to really tell your vision to the world, you know. And I remember getting there, and I thought my Uber was delayed, and I'm like running in the wrong shoes through London trying to figure out where to go. And I'm thinking to myself, they're definitely not going to be completely on time. But oh, no, they were like perfectly on time to the second. And of course, I just got there in the nick of time. So I had to really like gear up and get myself ready while I'm kind of like sweaty and like stressed out. And I asked them before I went in for a cookie and for some water. It was just like the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, I'm just going to have to ask for this because I think I have low blood sugar. But really, I was completely freaking out. I mean, you know, that moment where you feel like you're going to throw up, that's what was happening to me. But, you know, I gathered myself before that meeting. I went to the bathroom really quickly and I looked in the mirror and I said, you can do this. You go in there and you kick butt. And I did. I had this incredible experience where I felt like I was watching myself, like kind of like a fly on the wall, out of body experience where I owned it and I delivered, and I had everything I needed to say. I said it in that moment, and I didn't stumble. I didn't stutter. I didn't trip, you know, and it's still one of the most incredible moments for me that I look back on in my career, and I'm going to be doing that forever. And I'm just, you know, I also remember to be proud of myself, pat yourself on the back every few years, every few months here, because what we do is hard. It's not easy. And it was a big win for me to be able to pull that off and to do it with, you know, with power.
That's a great story, because I do think sometimes we don't have those moments where we just sort of say, God, I can't believe that like we've achieved this. You know, we're always going to the next thing. So I think that's exactly a good point. And when we spoke before, you mentioned that you feel it's the duty of women in senior positions to reach down and help others up the ladder. Are there any women who do this and who inspire you in business?
Yeah, I think that it's something I talk a lot about. It's something I do personally. Any spare minute that I have, I'm mentoring other founders, other women who haven't raised funding before, because, we all have more wisdom than someone else, just with a few more years under our belt. And so I believe that it's very much our duty as women, and also our duty as just founders, CEOs, trailblazers, right? To take it upon ourselves to share the stuff we've learned, to share the wisdom we do have. And I've been lucky enough in my career to have an incredible amount of support from female investors, from other founders. I've created a really beautiful network of women who I can call on a moment's notice and cry to and say, I need help. And what do I do? And I've hit a wall, how do I move forward here? And without that, I don't know if I could do this every day. This is a really, really hard job. All of us have really hard positions that we're put in constantly. There's one, and I'm also in the tech world, right? So I have both kind of this jewelry side to me, which I'm still learning and navigating, and then the tech side, which I've been in for longer in my career. And I have a few women that I've noticed that just really take it upon themselves to talk about this openly. And one founder that I really just think is fantastic, her name is Cindy Eckhart, and she is actually in the medical pharmaceutical space. And she sold her first, one of her first companies. And now instead of she's creating more stuff, but she's building a platform called the Pink Ceiling for women to continue raising funding and to help one another and to really reach down and pull each other up. And that's her mission now, saying, hey, why am I the only one? Why am I one of the few that have sold a company, right? Let's get more women up here. Let's get more women doing this. And I've been so inspired by that. And so it's definitely a mantra that I follow, in my daily career.
Great. And I think, if you can help somebody else, you kind of end up helping yourself in the end, because it all comes around.
Oh, yes, it does. That's very true.
Talking of it coming around, we are now going into the general questions for the entire panel. And I'm going to leap in with some pretty tricky questions, because, that's what I'm about. So jewelry is an industry where Joe mentioned that the consumers are overwhelmingly women, but we still have relatively few women at the top in positions of power. What will it take, do you think, to affect real change? Who wants to leap in with that one? Is that Joe looking keen? Are you leaping in?
Yes, no, I'm just organizing myself. The screen keeps moving. Look, I would definitely vote for change, or rather for women doing it for themselves, because naturally I think women are just powerful human beings. We give birth, don't we? That's a skill on its own, so it demonstrates how powerful we are. Just to share a few stats that I had just taken down, that in the US, you've got almost 12.3 million businesses that are women owned, which represents almost 40% of business in the US. They literally contribute $1.8 trillion per annum. That's huge, for women. So I honestly think that we really need to try and infiltrate the mainstream industries where we can effect change and transformation and give ourselves a chance to thrive, and definitely try and network better amongst ourselves. Because I think we do have that potential to empower ourselves within our groups. Make sure that the platforms are open for engagements and networking, and making sure that collaborations happen across the world. I don't see any challenges. If we can have a platform like this, why can't we have a platform like this discussing potential opportunities, whether it's in South Africa, whether it's in Canada? I strongly believe that if we open these communication channels, anything is possible, especially where women come together. I have no doubt.
So collaboration, I think, is a good point to make there, because I think that's when you can achieve things beyond your actual natural ability. Does anyone else want to jump into that one, or should I go to the next question? Roxanne.
Just a small point. I think we're doing a really good job at the moment. I think we are all pushing forwards and I see a lot more unity at the moment with women, and that's really great to see. But I do also think, not just in the jewelry industry, but in all industries, we need to just take a little bit of, out of the Scandinavians book and have a little bit more equality when it comes to paternal leave if you're having a child. I just had a baby, my second child, so this is at the forefront of my mind. But I think having a little bit more domestic equality would help, because obviously women take a chunk of time to go on maternity leave. Lots of it the man could actually do that amount. So it means that you're sort of set back in your career if you have a set amount of maternity leave, and your husband only has 2 weeks, for example, in the UK, which is crazy. So I just think having a little, for women, obviously getting together and supporting each other more, but also systemically having change in the household. It's going to take a very long time, but I think we need to be quite cautious and conscious of that it plays a big part in our capabilities.
And I think sometimes as women, we don't ask for things that we want. We often, want to be the good ones. So sometimes you just have to ask if you need help, whoever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Melanie, can I add to that? So I completely agree with everything that's been said, and I think I do think that things are changing. I think there is more awareness and more focused action. I guess it's whether it's changing fast enough, and the business case is just so clear, not just on gender, but inclusion. And we're obviously talking about gender today, but inclusion and diversity more broadly, for more productive, more innovative, more resilient companies and industries. So, to be able to compete, you need the best talent, and the best talent is diverse. So I think if there's any organization in the industry that's not moving on that or moving faster. And I think the other thing I would say is I think it takes really proactive, focused, deliberate action to change, and really listening and understanding the barriers and focusing. And there's no silver bullet. And I think, I guess we all wish there was. It would make things a lot easier. So we've, over the last 3 years, we've moved our senior leadership representation from 17%, which was incredibly low, to 30% over 3 years, and we've still got a lot to do, without doubt, and a lot to learn. But what we have learned is that it is possible if you really, really focus on it. If senior leadership, if everybody in the organization makes it a real priority, then it is possible to affect the change, but you have to be very, very deliberate about it, and sometimes that's what's missing, I think.
And Madeline, I'm aware that you may want to answer that.
Sure, I would love to chime in. I agree with what everyone is saying. I think the only other thing that I would say is I think it's completely the duty of all the men in the workforce to lift us up too. I think that it's really hard when it's all about men and women, right? I think it really needs to become more equal. And I've had many mentors and sponsors in my life that, the reason I've been able to start my very first company, for example, was because of men who were already doing it, and they understood how it worked, and they had the knowledge and the wisdom, and they did reach their hand out and pull me up with them. And there are so many men like that out there that are so fantastic and willing to help. And, I see that all the time. And so I think that it's really about all of us coming together and working together to make change. It's not just on us, to do that.
Yes, that's it. I mean, I think as well for mentors, it's good to have a range of people. I've got several mentors who help me across different areas. And I think that's always, you don't have to stick to one. And so let's talk about networking, because it's such a crucial element to what we're talking about. And it's often the basis of business itself, especially in an industry that relies on personal recommendations like the jewelry industry. How can women penetrate what still exists as the old boys network, or should we create our own networks? Roxanne?
I think it's important to create our own networks. We're living in a different time, and like you said, old boys clubs, they're old. So it's time for us to, you know, carve our own paths. And the thing is we have to remember is that we're all so different. We all have different minds. So technically it's not competition. It's supporting each other and bringing each other up. And we can have really solid networks by creating our own, and a space that really works for us as individuals. We don't necessarily have to fall into the categories that are pre-existing, because they don't really work for today. Obviously, there are times in life where, you know, you could try and fit in if you want to, but who wants to do that? I think it's all about, you know, being more conscious ourselves and taking these paths and doing it ourselves. I don't see why not.
Joe. Oh, Joe, you're on mute.
Am I cool now? I think it's a very important question that you're addressing there, Mel, and a very good point from you, Roxanne. I strongly also vote for Women Network because we know ourselves better, you know. We understand ourselves better. Okay, men are trying, they've been trying all their lives to understand us, but they always somewhere miss the point. But I think as women, we understand each other better, and we can actually make it work ourselves. So it's about time that women start their own networks. Look, we can always learn from the men. That is they've been in the game for longer, and it's wise to also learn from the people that have been around for a while. But definitely, it's about time. I think we are capable. We are more focused. We can multitask. We're actually very powerful, and sometimes we take ourselves for granted. But I think definitely, yes, our own network.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and just to add to that, I love I love that, and I think it is about creating the new networks, isn't it? So you know, I think the new generation of men don't particularly want to be in old boys' networks. Dull, like, you know, have, you know, new diverse networks of interesting people and authentic leaders who have got, you know, interesting ideas to bring and exchange is great. I've got to say, as well as that, I do also really value you know, the other senior women at work who are willing to just be completely honest, you know, with each other. And I mean, I love the fact that, you know, you see these women at work and they're completely kick-ass, and you're getting WhatsApp for them going, I've just tried to ice my 5-year-old's birthday cake for the party tomorrow and it's gone horribly wrong, but I've got a call with the minister of such and such in 10 minutes. And it's just, you know, it's just great to know that other people are also dealing with the same juggling act that you're dealing with. So I think both important.
And Madeline, anything to add?
Yeah, Katie, I love that, because I think the authenticity is what we all need. We all need to be like, life is hard and we are not perfect. And I just cried 5 minutes ago, and like, I just brushed my hair, you know, whatever it is. I think that there's so much put upon women, right? I mean, I was thinking about this morning. It's morning in LA for me. And I was like, you know what? If I was a man, I wouldn't have to freaking brush my hair and put on makeup and like do this whole thing. And I would like save like 45 minutes, right? You know, and I think I just think that there needs to be more conversation and more fluidity amongst just women just talking like that. And it's funny because I've always run startups. I've never been hired by anybody technically. I don't think I've ever even written a resume. But De Beers has been such a great ally for me and such an incredible team to work with. And I get like a little taste of what corporate life could potentially look like. And the women that work at De Beers, you included, Katie, you guys are so freaking awesome. I mean, these women are incredible, and they're real, and they're badasses, and they're hard workers, and they don't hold back. And I've experienced that too with the De Beers team. And so I appreciate that so much coming from these people that we're working with every day.
Great. Well, I kind of feel like so inspired by this conversation. I mean, you know, we haven't got much time left. It's all kind of a bit, you know, it's great. So, okay, I'm going to go for the last general question. And we might start with Madeline, as it's kind of her area. A lot of the opportunities coming in business are connected to finance and technology. How can women prepare themselves in their businesses for things like cryptocurrency and AI?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm in the tech world. I've been in the world for a long time. I'm not an engineer. I don't know everything about cryptocurrency or AI. I learn about it. I'm curious. I get people who are smarter than me, and I figure out how to get them on my team. I mean, that's it, right? So I think as women, we can feel really intimidated by XYZ industry. Well, that's, BS. Come on, just dive in head first and start learning and be curious and meet the right people, and then you start building your team, you start building the knowledge base. You don't have to have all the answers, you don't have to have all the tools. And what I also would argue is that the tech space, for me at least, and what I've learned, is it's incredibly creative. I'm a super creative person. I'm also very analytical, but I feel so inspired to be around engineers, to be building technology, to be coming up with user experiences that have never been done before, to be breaking boundaries within the jewelry space. I mean, that's what gets me up every morning. That's what gets me excited. Am I physically the one coding it? No, right? But that's okay. I'm the one who gets to kind of call the shots and work with an incredible team. And so I would say just dive in head first, go for it. You'll learn a hell of a lot along the way, and you don't need to know everything.
Great advice. Anyone else want to chip into that one? Roxanne.
Madeline, that was great. I don't really know very much about the tech space, but I agree. It's all about knowledge, isn't it? Knowledge has always been power, and if we equip ourselves well enough, then we can be in any industry that we want to. And I think that is one of the brilliant things about being a woman. We never think, this isn't for me. We figure things out. We get a flat package, and before you know it, it's up, and the man walks in and says, "Oh, who did that? Did it come like that?" No, it didn't. We always figure things out. And I think that's the powerful thing that we have. That is a gift that we've been given. I think we just have to. And if you're interested in whatever it is, I think you just have to just learn as much as you possibly can. And like Madeline says, being curious is probably one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, with regards to your AI, I think for us, with the COVID throwing us out of the rails, we soon realized that we needed to be very technological or digitally savvy, because that was one part of our business that we sort of we old school. We still believed in personal touch, engaging your client face to face. But now, given the COVID challenges, we really had to be on the social medias, being able to reach out, and we really had to move fast and evolve with the times, because you can't really bury your head in the sand and then blame COVID. It's going to be here. It's going to be here for some time. So it's very good that we get on with the program and get loaded, get our businesses on the social medias, and then learn the technology. Absolutely, because we're moving with the time. You're dealing with millennials. You're dealing with these cryptocurrencies. All of a sudden, we won't be having monies in our bags. We'll have to deal with all this, ever-changing technologies, and such is life, So as women in business, I think it's very important to really, really, really take advantage of doing business easy. I mean, as I'll go back again to COVID, that once upon a time you had to go to work, and work was the office. All of a sudden, you're working from home, and such challenges that life will throw at you, and then you need to adapt very quickly and move forward. So yeah, it's interesting times that we're living in, especially in the diamond industry.
Great, thanks, Jo.
Yeah, and I think, Melanie, I just agree with all of that. And I think just to add, I think we need to think about it in terms of support for women right the way through the value chain. So in diamond producing countries, so for example, we have a huge program supporting women entrepreneurs with UN Women. And COVID, it was very much a face-to-face mentoring and coaching program. With COVID, we had to work out how to pivot that, completely. So we worked with another partner we have who, in terms of supporting girls and young women with tech, and to support the entrepreneurs to be able to go online, but also building in modules like on AI, like on cybersecurity, which is something that we probably wouldn't have done for a few years, you know, in terms of the program. So it's accelerated everything, but in order for, you know, them to be able to compete with their businesses, this is going to be so critical. So I think thinking about how do we really sort of address those barriers and support women all the way along that value chain is just so important.
Well, that's great. And I think we've come to a time where we're going to actually take some questions from the audience. And I think there's some good questions here. I'm looking at these. Right. Okay, so our first question is, this is directed to Katie from Rebecca. What would be your advice on how to select a sponsor? Who are the top 5 things? What are the top 5 things to look out for?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think if you've got a good mentor, a mentor and a sponsor doesn't necessarily need to be 2 different people. I think they can be, but they don't necessarily need to be. So I think if you've got a good mentor who has that kind of that credibility, those networks, who's willing to advocate for you in the organization, that's a conversation you can have if you've got that relationship with an internal mentor. To ask their advice about it and to start to talk to them about it, and probably start to talk about, well, you know, these are my career aspirations, these are opportunities I see coming up, you know, you're going to be in the room. So I think really looking for those people who know you well, or who you can get to know better and work closer with, who are in that position and are in those conversations, to really be able to make sure, you know, you're getting that visibility and that recognition. So if you think your mentor can do that, then fantastic. But if not, starting to sort of create those networks with others who can, I think is really important.
And does anyone else want to answer that question?
I just have one thing to add, just because I've gone through the process of, you know, finding the right mentors, and Katie, I never really heard a lot about the word sponsor, but I think I've had that now that you've explained that to me. And so the main thing I would say is you're looking at somebody that you're targeting that you need help from, but they're incredibly busy, right? And so the thing that I've learned is you can't go into it half-assed. You can't go into it and say, oh, well, could you do this and maybe this? And no, you have to have clarity in what you need, and you have to have the path to get there for that person. And a lot of times, right? And it might even come down to like writing the email for them and then giving it to them and they spice it up, right? I mean, anything you can do to support that person and to guide them, because right, they're even above you. So they're doing so much stuff that they might forget about you. Never stop being persistent. That's the other thing. You know, you might have to ask 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. That's okay. You just have to, you got to kind of get in there. And sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, but if you have clarity in what you need, you can do it.
Great. Anyone else? I would say, if I'm just going to jump in there, for a sponsor, I'd say you can never underestimate how much time, as we said, the time is very limited. So you always have to go to them. If they say I've got 10 minutes on a Friday morning at 6 a.m., you don't try and make it more convenient for you. Just go to wherever they are and you just make it work. And also, you'd be surprised at how many things you can offer a sponsor which aren't obvious. So like, you know, if you've got a sponsor who's very powerful, but then they're really interested in golf and you're really good at golf, you can offer them something which sometimes on the surface you would never think of, which is really valuable to them. And if you can, always offer any networking you can to somebody, even if they seem like they've got it all figured out, because they've probably got a hobby or they probably need help in an area that they aren't that good at, which you actually are an expert at. So, you know, definitely try and offer some kind of skill in return if you can, because then it's an much more equal relationship. And, you know, I think that's always good for the long term if you want to make it a very long-term relationship. Okay, so I've got, if anyone else is into, right, we're going to move on to the next question. So Jasna says, how difficult or easy do you find spreading the marketing/acquisition through digital marketing or retail? So I'm taking that question. Anyone interested in that question? Madeline.
I'm happy to talk about that. Well, I own a digital business, so this is kind of my bread and butter. you know, it's hard. I think digital marketing is really hard. Paid advertising is very difficult. You're looking at a world of smoke and mirrors in a lot of ways. And so what I would tell you is to, number one, create incredible content that's meaningful, that resonates with you, that resonates with your brand, and have integrity and authenticity behind that, and don't steer from it as much as you can. Number two, you're going to need a really, really good acquisition person, right? Somebody who very much understands paid channels, understands how to get you off the ground, how to test, how to optimize, how to scale. It doesn't happen overnight. It's kind of a slow process. And it takes a lot of little puzzle pieces that have to come together, right? And it's almost like you're constantly solving issues, which I actually think is super fun, right? So one thing might work, another thing might not work. And it's your job to collect the data to start figuring out why. So make sure that you're also collecting your data. Google Analytics is a great way to do that. Or if you're selling things through Shopify, they have a great platform for data. Think about your consumer, think about their journey. How do they start? Where do they end? Go through the funnel with them, and really try to put yourself in their shoes. Just from even a marketing perspective, what's going to make me click on this ad? Okay, once I get to this, what's going to make me buy this? Okay, right? You know, really try to think outside of the box in terms of how to captivate them from start to finish along the whole journey.
Great answer. Anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to go on to the next question. And this question is from Tara. I'm a recent graduate. I had a part-time job at a jewelry shop through uni, and I'm looking to get into a career in marketing/sales for diamonds. In this economic climate, how would you recommend I make my application stand out compared to someone older who has benefited from nepotistic connections? It's quite a juicy question there. Who's going to go for that one? Oh, let's go for Joe.
You know
first.
what? I think Joe, you would go, yes, because you're more in the diamond.
Okay, look, I would recommend to the young one. Clearly, she is a young one. Just to really believe in what they as an individual can offer. I mean, if you had to take an older person and a younger person, you're finding that with a younger person, there's more leverage. They are more keen to new things. They are more curious. They are more adventurous. You know, they've got a different way of approaching clients. They've got a different way of connecting clients. They've got a different way of reaching out to their peers. Because that is that you need a wide spectrum of clientele. You know, you don't want to stick to your original, or rather your older clients. You constantly want to expand your business and to reach out to those that have never dealt in diamonds before. I'll give you an example. In South Africa, we are generally not a diamond consuming country. Yes, we do have the resource. We are a producer country, but as history would have it, I find that with our people, they don't look at diamonds as priority, you know, but they do have the money. But with proper education and with proper channels and people understanding that it is not just for the rich, you know, you can afford, even if it's a smaller diamond, as long as you have got that budget, it is doing, you can actually own diamond. So with the younger generation, or a mix of older and younger generation, you do find a good mix, because there's target markets for both. So the applicant should really believe in themselves, or rather believe in himself, and put his best foot forward, and show his worth. That's my humble opinion.
Great. Anyone else? Madeline, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, that was fantastic. I think, you know, I think being someone younger coming into an industry is always scary. So I definitely have a lot of empathy for that. But you know what? You might just be the perfect age of the target demographic of that company. And that's a big deal. That's meaningful. That's powerful. And so run with that. You know, you are the consumer. You understand this demographic that everybody is attempting to target, and therefore you can do things differently, you can innovate in a new way, you can have a fresh outlook on how to talk about this in a new way. I mean, I resonate with that very much because I'm more on the millennial, I'm a millennial, and I'm coming into the diamond industry doing things differently. And I do get a lot of pushback from people in the industry that have been doing things the same way for a long time. And I'm sort of putting a stake in the ground saying, guess what? It's time to do things a little bit differently, and here's why. And I do it mainly because of the demographic that I'm attempting to target, which happens to be the millennial demographic, which happens to be for, you know, the target demographic that a lot of these companies are attempting to target. So own that and have power in that, because you are worthy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'd say all businesses just are looking for new, younger customers. I mean, they all are, especially in jewelry. So it's actually an advantage sometimes to be young. And especially if you have digital skills, definitely emphasize that and come up with new ideas, which maybe that company hasn't thought of to reach sort of a wider audience. So I would definitely don't think your youth is a disadvantage. It's definitely an advantage in some capacities. So I think we've got.
Yeah, and Melanie, just to add to that, I think any recruitment team worth their salt now is looking at potential, not experience. Yeah, so absolutely, I agree with the others. Back yourself.
So, and Tara, when you get your first job, come back and see us and let us know. So, okay, we're going to our last question, and this is from Kumo, and this is initially addressed to Joe. One last one. Yes. Has Coven impacted your business significantly? And how do you see the future of the diamond market post-COVID? And would you advise one to invest in the diamond industry?
Thank you, Kumo, for that question. Yes, like any other business, our business was impacted by COVID, because it is a manual skill type of business. We need the people to sit in the factory and cut and polish the diamonds. But also, given the challenges that COVID has had economically, priorities move. You know, when you are faced with dying, or when you are faced with losing your job, your priorities move. You know, do you go and buy yourself a diamond, or do you make sure that you save enough to be able to pay the house or buy the food, or, you know, so there's a whole lot of dynamics that go into the challenges that we will face globally with COVID. But I think also it presented other opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, with regards to now going digital, you know, really trusting or rather upgrading your digital platform and coming up with creative ways, you know, of selling your diamonds. I would go back again to the 67 facet that it is a unique cut. It gives somebody something to say, you know, to feel good in a situation or in an environment where there's very little positive to say, especially surrounded by COVID, you're surrounded by death and everything like that. People that were supposed to get married are not getting married, but once they've decided upon that, you have got this beautiful offering or something fresh that they can, you know, pamper themselves with, and then feel good. So yes, absolutely, it is still an industry to invest in. As a previous investment banker or interested in stock markets and things like that, I would still recommend Diamond Collection and as a diversified portfolio. We always encourage our clients to have family jewels. You know, we've seen diamonds carry generations of I mean, it's very popular in the Jewish community, where diamonds carry generation after generation after generation, you know, of the business. So it is quite important, yes, to have your focus right. And then it is definitely a business that is still going to thrive. I mean, after wars and everything, the diamond industry is still standing, you know. So it is definitely an investment that one could look at instead of, you know, we always say, please God, our country doesn't catch fire, or if it had to catch fire, if you've got a bag of diamonds, you can be able to go and start somewhere else, you know. So if you've bought that beautiful painting there, Madeline, abstract painting behind you. I would not be able to carry it into the flight and run and go liquidate it, you know, whereas with your bag of diamonds, you can go and liquidate elsewhere and start afresh, you know. So it is something worthy to look at as an investment. So absolutely, Kumo, this is not a dying industry, contrary to belief. It might be shrinking, but it gives one an opportunity to expand and be innovative and come up with fresh things. We said the diamond must always be round, you know. Why can't we have a diamond that looks like this, you know? Because it's different, because it's appealing to, you know, to a new generation. So yeah, you don't stop being creative.
Thanks, Joe. I just wanted to add as well that obviously diamonds and gold very much hold their value in times of kind of like, you know, we're not sure what's going to happen. And they have, and this is why they're always, you know, going to be a great investment. I just wanted to sort of sum up and say thank you to everyone. That was a magnificent talk. Everyone gave us such wisdom, and I'm clapping everyone from my flat. Thank you, everyone. You know, as we've been saying, women have to be brave and push themselves forward to access the new opportunities that are coming towards us post-COVID. As the industry adapts and evolves, we need to work together. We need to get sponsorship, mentoring, network support, share skills. And when we have challenges, we need to talk about them and share them. Because everything we're experiencing, you know, all of us are from different places, are surprisingly common everywhere. So, you know, whatever you think is happening to you, everyone's experiencing the same thing. So definitely ask and offer help. I want to say thanks to the Natural Diamond Council for encouraging us to have these conversations and for joining us all with everyone in the audience. And I think we're going to wrap up. So I'm going to say good night, everyone. We're going to wave out and hopefully we'll see you for the next one very soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Melanie.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.